in all honesty, it's not too big of an exaggeration to say that autistic people complain about autism a lot, at least the effects of autism, because a lot of us are also obsessed with autism after we get diagnosed. But we do complain a lot about it, a lot. And it makes sense because society doesn't treat us well. And oftentimes, when you vent to somebody, either they don't listen to you, you listen to them, they don't listen to you. That's very common for autistic people. And if they do, sometimes they just don't get it. For instance, I don't want to go to this conference and present in front of a bunch of people. An autistic person's going to get that right away. Oh man, that sounds like it's going to be exhausting. You know, you're going to do it, and then afterwards you're going to need to go and isolate and recharge for a while. Where a neurotypical might just look down on you for not being as confident as them or whatever. And this sort of thing happens a lot. A lot. But, you know, they've always kind of had that unequal sort of power where there's more of them than us. But are they right? Half the time, more than half the time, they're not. And let's just sit down and think about it. Autism's rough. There's a lot of things we have to deal with. How many of us would actually give it up to be neurotypical? I could tell you that I would not be. And it's time to talk about some of these strengths. Because neurotypicals, in so many ways, are the special ones. We're special when it comes to getting into a group of people and doing the animal instinct thing where we just yap. Yap, 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 yap. Kind of like a bunch of ducks quacking at each other. They're good at that. They are so good at that. But when it comes to logic and reason, figuring things out, they are literally at a disability. And so I kind of just want to talk about that a little bit. The things I've noticed in my life where I have an upper hand on people. And really, it's kind of driven me a little bit crazy. Because you think that I must be like them. They're oblivious to the way they are. And so I must be oblivious. Nope, it turns out I just think more. I actually think more. I'm less mindless than them. So where I'm getting that from is research shows most people, meaning neurotypicals, because they're most people, use their System 1 thought process to figure things out. That is, their emotions, their intuition, so on and so forth. Autistic people, a lot of us, tend to feel like we have two different personas in us. Not that we're, a split personality really, but I refer to myself as we a lot. Because it's almost as if my System 1 thought process doesn't communicate too well with my System 2. I have to always do this klutzy thing of thinking things out slowly. Very, very slowly. And, well, if you rush me too much, I'm going to be next to useless. Oftentimes, the garbage and slop that System 1 spits out for neurotypicals is just as bad, but oftentimes it works. And so when you're in a conversation with somebody and need time to think of your response, the neurotypical has already had the response that worked better than yours popped into their minds. So it's just harder for us to talk to neurotypicals. That's the main thing. That literally is the main thing. My sensitivity to sound, I kind of like it in certain ways. I hear the gate open up outside when a guest arrives. I am more vigilant in a lot of ways. But, it has its challenges. But nothing compared to how neurotypicals act towards me. That's the biggest challenge in my life. And, well, they are so reassured that they're right on so many things. And oftentimes, they're not. Their thought process is literally more animal-like and automatic and robotic. They go on autopilot all the time. Autistic people don't have that luxury. We don't, a lot of us. It's exhausting because you have to expend more energy, literally more energy, to have a conversation. So, if they actually use their fucking brain, they would be just as exhausted after going to a conference or whatever. But some real facts are out there. For instance, there's this famous study where they tested some individuals on rope or snake lengths or something like that. There were 3 altogether, and they asked which one's the longest. So, what happens to a neurotypical? They fuck with their heads. That's what they do. They use the fact that peer pressure is real in neurotypicals, and they don't have an independent mind, at least as much as autistic people do. Because they tap into that System 1 thought process all the fucking time. All the fucking time. And so, when you have a group of people telling you that the short snake's the longest. The neurotypicals are going to be like, oh, what, oh, and pick the same thing as everyone else. They repeated this study with autistic individuals, and autistic people pick the longest or shortest snake. They pick the one they see and go with it. They don't care what the fuck the rest of the group's saying. They pick the right answer because they were asked a question. And employers are interested in this sort of thing. They're interested in the more analytic and independent thought process autistic people have. Our attention to detail. You just need to give us time to kind of sift through those details, because we're not going to spit back slop at you instantaneously just because it's easier. That's not going to happen. So we make less mistakes when there's a technical task at hand, because again, System 1 thought process isn't dictating our decisions. But, the judgment is there. It is definitely there. Still, navigating this world, in a lot of ways, the landmines are there for neurotypicals. The way I see it here in the United States is, well, I'm not making any sort of statement about capitalism being good or bad. More so, it is what it is. When you have a capitalistic society with a bunch of corporations whose goal is to maximize profit, you do this by putting out commercials, right? The commercials aren't the most factual things. In fact, they have teams of researchers in these focus groups to fuck with your head again. And what I mean by that is the neurotypicals. They're like light to flies, or the ads are to them. They don't even realize they're being manipulated, but they are. And, well, we kind of apply these traits across the board, or we did, and it turns out that a lot of autistic people are not as easily influenced by ads. And so let me go back to the capitalistic thing. Logic, reason, facts, that's what we want. Why do I need this product? Why is it for me? Why is it better than this? No, you don't get that in commercials, because, well, neurotypicals are going to turn their fucking brains off because they have to think. They don't want to think. Not when they're watching TV, especially. Especially when they're watching TV. The point of TV is not to think for most people. So, you're at a disadvantage if you're just appealing to autistic people. Instead, a corporation is gonna employ these other tactics to make you buy their product without realizing it, because most people are neurotypical. If you don't do it, and you actually cater to logic and reason, a competitor is gonna do the dirty work, and you're gonna be at a disadvantage. And so, basically, marketing tactics, commercials, all that, it's geared towards neurotypicals. And they are the ones who are susceptible to it. Not us as much. I'm not going to say not at all, but research really suggests that we are way better at picking the actual, factually best buy, or whatever you want to say. For instance, there's consistently these decoys out there in buying something. The first example I could think of is with the bread maker. People weren't buying bread makers until there was something to compare it to. And what often happens is there's a product on a shelf just there to make you buy the more expensive product than you would otherwise. It makes one product look like it's a better price because you're comparing it. And they're not able to see, I need this thing with these abilities. They just look at the picture put in front of them to fuck with their minds, and then it does exactly that. It fucks with their minds. So let me pause real quick. This happens all the time with them. Their decision-making capabilities are not as good as they think. And oftentimes it does lead us into situations where it's frustrating. It's like, I'm being yelled at because my body language is weird, but it annoys you, and so now you're acting irrational and being a douchebag towards me because of that. Things like that happen all the time, and neurotypicals don't even notice. So there, I couldn't help myself but complain about autism or neurotypicals, either one. We'll say I'm complaining about neurotypicals. Real life example of this. Going into Circle K and wanting an orange. So it's $1 for an orange. Well, I go and buy the orange and I see the sign there. Either 1 for $1 or 2 for $1.90. Oh my gosh, I could save 10 cents. That's all a neurotypical thinks. I could save 10 cents if I get 2. And, well, I look at the sign, I'm like, I want 1. I want 1. And so I buy 1. The clerk at the cash register couldn't understand. He didn't get it. he didn't fucking get it. I was saying that yeah, it's 2 for 190. You know, go grab another one. I know, I just need one. It's 2, and you save money. No, actually, I'm paying 90 cents to save 10 cents, which is what the corporation wants me to do, because I came in here to buy 1 orange, and now I'm buying 2. I'm spending more money than I intended. That's what they do to people. They try to get in your fucking head and make you spend more. I didn't say that. I just kind of said, I only want 1, and it's more money to pay for 2 still, even though I'm saving money in respect to what it would be. Like, if I checked out, bought an orange, and then checked out again and bought an orange, yeah, that's 10 cents more. 10 cents more. You're making me spend 90 cents to save 10 cents. He didn't get it. He didn't get it. He looked at me like I was the dumbest person in the world. I'm just like, wow. People are really, really oblivious to these tactics. So, point being, you might feel like you're at a disadvantage when you're around neurotypical people because they're making all these decisions, like, in an instant. They don't make their decisions. They don't. They don't think. Most of them. It's frustrating because they can, they just don't. And so, what ends up happening is they make these poor choices all the time, and all that they see is everyone's making the same choices as them. Therefore, it's the right choice. Kind of like with the snake example. Oh, that shorter snake is definitely longer than the other one because everyone else thinks it's longer. No, it's just illustrating that people don't think for themselves. People meaning neurotypicals. So next time you hear this sort of thing and people blindly and blankly apply these traits across the board, remember, you don't have these traits as much if you're autistic. So you struggle with things, but at least you're not that.